Call the meeting to order. Zebulon Board of Commissioners meeting for 5/2/22. And we have the Pledge of Allegiance. You will lead us.
Please join in with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we have the approval of the agenda.
Mayor, I have some things that need to be pulled. I would like to please pull ordinance 2022-38 from consent. I would like to pull the memorandum of understanding with Wake County from consent. I would like to pull the facility use policies from consent. In addition, I would like to remove ordinance 2022-39 from the agenda to be discussed at a later date. I would also like to remove ordinance 2022-42 as well as resolution 2022-13 from the agenda.
You may want to take them one at a time since there's so many, so you know what you're going to do.
There's only 3 pulled from consent.
We would need a second. We would need a motion and a second.
Anyone can ask to have the consent items moved off. The others on the regular agenda would have to be subject to a vote.
As amended, right? Mr. Vernon? As amended, like the agenda as amended?
Well, you would make a
No,
motion.
the individual items that you requested to have removed that were not part of consent.
Okay, then I move to have ordinance 2022-39 removed from the agenda.
It needs a second.
Is there a motion? Second.
Second.
Second, right there.
All in favor? Motion passed.
I move to remove ordinance 2022-42 from the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been a second. All in favor?
And finally,
Ask for all those opposed so we know who's in
Oh,
favor
okay.
and who's against, please.
All opposed?
I move to remove resolution 2022-13 from the agenda.
Is a motion?
Which one was that again?
Which one is that?
That's the utility allocation policy.
Is a motion?
Yeah.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion passed. Motion for approval of the agenda?
1 second, I'd like to pull as well, though.
You have one? Okay.
Correct. Ordinance 2022-40, dumpster enclosure.
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand.
Ordinance 2022-40, 2022-03-03.
You want it pulled from the agenda?
Oh, it's not a consent. Okay, you're fine. You're fine. Leave it where it is. I apologize. You're fine. Thank you.
You're welcome.
In the consent, I'd just like the April 21st to reflect that Commissioner Harrison was in attendance, if I could please amend that.
Pardon me, I'm sorry?
April 21st.
The minutes
The
for
minutes,
April 21st.
21st could reflect that Commissioner Harrison was in attendance, please.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Excuse me, Mayor, for items that have been removed from the consent agenda, you may want to add them to another part of the agenda.
Those will be added
Or ask
under,
that they be deleted from the agenda for the 3 that Commissioner Baxter asked for, correct? And then the other 3? to add
The
to
ones from
agenda?
consent. Yeah, weren't pulled from the agenda, but just moved out of consent.
the removal items,
Did you need the ones pulled from consent again?
2239 and
2238. And then the memorandum of understanding and the facility use policy.
removal,
Just taking them out of consent, so we need to put them,
and add them to new business under E.
Well, for
Thank
me, for Park and Rec,
Correct.
I just want to completely just do that.
for which one?
Park and Rec, completely just discuss it at a work session, the policies for Park and Recreation facilities. Completely just remove it.
You would prefer to remove it from the agenda?
Correct.
Okay. Do you want to make a motion for that?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we remove Park and Rec facility use policy from the agenda, please.
Oh, I'll second that.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second for removal of Park and Rec resolution. What number is that?
That's E.
E1.
E?
Yes,
Facility use policy?
correct.
We have a motion and a second.
Make a motion to remove, oh, it's not your motion.
I'm sorry.
Make a motion to remove the Parks and Rec facility use
Correct.
policy.
Second.
All in favor? Motion passed.
So did you want to take the memorandum of understanding and make that F, Mayor?
Move that to under E,
Correct.
new business.
And then 2022-38 will also be under E?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
2022-38 under new business E.
Can we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended, please?
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Next, we have school recognition. Middle school student Jaden Gratham.
Zebulon Middle School student Jaden Grantham was selected for recognition of being an overall outstanding student. He's a high-achieving student who consistently makes the A honor roll and is always respectful to the staff and other students. Jaden supports his community through clubs and volunteering. He is an active member of the Future Health Professionals and the National Junior Honor Society at Zebulon GT Magnet Middle School. Jade has also assisted with the beautification project of planting flowers downtown. He is a volunteer at the local soup kitchen and has enjoyed reading to younger students at the local daycare. Jaden's goal is one day to be in the medical field, and congratulations, Jaden. The town of Zebulon recognizes Jaden Grantham of Zebulon Middle School for being an outstanding student and a role model for other students by standing out as a leader and volunteering. May 2nd, 2022. Mayor Glenn L. York.
Thank you.
And next we will have the teacher, Zachary. Thank you. I didn't want to mess that up. Mr. P is a new staff member that's joined the 6th grade team here this year. He has quickly become a part of Zebulon Middle School family and has forged relationships with the students and faculty. He has a wealth of resource and technical skills that he's willing to share with everyone and always steps up to lead a helping hand. He's willing to take on new leadership roles in committees and is our go-to guy for all things. He is our go-to guy for all things in technology. He is not afraid to learn new things and has taken many extra responsibilities at Zebulon Middle School. We consider ourselves lucky to have Mr. P a part of our community. The town of Zebulon recognizes Mr. Zachary P of Zebulon Middle School for his dedication to the school and students. He's individually and highly deserving of all recognitions, recognized as an outstanding educator, March 2nd, 2022, signed by Mayor Glenn L. York. We have several proclamations tonight, so I've asked certain board members to help me save my voice and present those. First one is Public Service Week. Commissioner Baxter.
So, Public Service Week, May 1st through May 7th, 2022. Whereas the people of the state of North Carolina and the town of Zebulon are served every single day by public servants at every level in the state, county, and municipal governments. These unsung heroes do the work that keeps our state and community working. And whereas public employees take not only jobs, but some take oaths to perform their jobs to the best of their abilities. And whereas public servants, including police officers, firefighters, public works employees, human resources, parks and recreation employees, planners, doctors, nurses, healthcare professionals, and others risk their lives each day in service to the people of the town of Zebulon. And whereas public servants, including teachers, social workers, administrators, computer technicians, laborers, and countless other occupations, day in and day out, provide with efficiency and integrity the diverse services expected by the citizens of the town of Zebulon. And whereas without these public servants at every level, continuity would be impossible in a democracy that regularly changes its leaders and elected officials. And now, therefore, the Board of Commissioners of the town of Zebulon hereby proclaims May 1st through 7th, 2022 as Public Service Recognition Week. All the citizens of the town of Zebulon are encouraged to recognize the accomplishments and contributions of all of the hardworking and deserving public employees within the town of Zebulon, adopted the second day of May, 2022.
Thank you. And let's see, Municipal Clerk's Week. Commissioner Lopes.
Proclamation, Municipal Clerks Week, May 1, May 7, 2022. Whereas the Office of Municipal Clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government existing throughout the world, and whereas the Office of Municipal Clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the Office of Municipal Clerk provides a professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of the neutrality, impartiality, and rendering equal service to all. Whereas a municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community. Whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and annual meetings of their state, province, county, and international professional organizations. Whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the municipal clerk. Now therefore, we, the Board of Commissioners of the town of Zebulon, do recognize the week May 1 through May 7, 2022 as Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our municipal clerk and to all municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. Adopted this day, 2nd of May, 2022.
Thank you. National Police Appreciation Week.
National Police Appreciation Week, May 11 through 17, 2022. Whereas in 1963, the Congress and President of the United States designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week. Whereas there are approximately 900,000 law enforcement officers serving across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Town of Zebulon Police Department. And whereas the members of the Zebulon Police Department play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of our community. And whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agencies, and that officers of the town of Zebulon recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of law enforcement of the town of Zebulon unceasingly provide a vital public service, and whereas by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to this community, and in so doing have established for themselves an inviolable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and the security of all citizens. Now therefore, the Town of Zebulon Board of Commissioners proclaims the week of May 11th through 17th, 2022 as Police Week. Furthermore, all citizens of Zebulon and all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations are called upon to observe May 15th, 2022 as Peace Officers Memorial Day, in which people may join in commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community and have become disabled in the performance of their duty. Adopted this second day, May 2022.
Thank you. And National Public Works Week.
National Public Works Week, May 15th through May 21st, 2022. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services vital to the sustainable and resilient communities, and whereas Zebulon Public Works dedicate their work towards building and caring for the streets, sidewalks, stormwater infrastructure, solid waste and recycling collections, and public buildings vital to the health, well-being, and quality of life in Zebulon. And whereas it is in the interest of the public for all citizens to understand the role public work plays in the town of Zebulon. And whereas 2022 marks the 62nd annual National Public Works Week. Now, therefore, the Board of Commissioners of the Town of Zebulon joins the American Public Works Association in recognizing the contributions of public work professionals to the health, safety, and quality of life in Zebulon, and proclaims the week of May 15th through May 21st, 2022 as National Public Works Week, adopted this the second day of May 2022.
Thank you. Thank you for all those that read. Public comment.
We have two. This was an email from Norma Martin. It says, "Hello, town board members. I am contacting you to show support for the amendment of section 130.01 of the Code of Ordinances. The amendment should allow for consumption of alcohol on public property, primarily sidewalks adjacent to a business holding an ABC permit. Sincerely, Norma Martin." The second one came from Chris Jorgensen. I believe everyone received an email, but it was asked that it be read into the record. Honorable Mayor and Commissioners of Zebulon, my name is Chris Jorgensen, and I am the owner of Norris Brewing Company. At the start of the year, I was invited out to your town, and I was impressed. Impressed by the approach you are taking to growing Zebulon, impressed by the additions you have already approved and are looking to approve in the future, and especially impressed by your view on policy to help shape the town and attract not just a next generation of the population, but now you partner with businesses in doing so. Norris being one example. A few weeks ago, I sat in on one of your town commissioners' meetings with Mike Clark, where Mike Clark presented a proposal on consumption of alcohol adjacent to an ABC permitted business, and I heard many citizens voice their support, even go further in recommending a social district. I am in full support of both models, as I believe and have seen firsthand that this is an extremely positive way to get people out to establishments, enjoy a beautiful town, and in a post-COVID world where many families are relocating as the workforce shifts to a more permanent, flexible work-life balance, where families are in search of communities they don't just live in, but can truly engage with to have a fuller life experience. When I was approached by the town of Zebulon, this was one of the things that made me put an offer on a building and take the first step to building our first Norris Longhouse. Given the support I heard in the previous meeting, I have full confidence that the board will vote positively on the proposal and allow not just Norris to execute our plans, but also help all the other great businesses that have invested in downtown in creating a great experience for our citizens. I apologize for not being able to attend this session in person, hence I wanted to reach out to all of you in advance. If Mike or any one of you as part of this presentation would like to include this letter, you may certainly do so. Sincerely, Chris.
Thank you. Now there's a motion for consent agenda.
Point of order, isn't that, didn't we already?
We've already approved the consent
Okay.
agenda.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you're at old business now.
Old business.
Correction, you are correct. You need to make a motion for that. We just made a lot of changes to it. I apologize. So we still need to move to approve the consent agenda? Okay, I make a
I
motion
make a motion that we approve the consent agenda
as amended.
as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion passes.
Good job.
Okay. Old business. Mike Clark.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. Get us through this. Okay, the first of the old business items is ordinance 2022-40. This is to amend the Unified Development Ordinance to require additional construction details pertaining to dumpsters in commercial settings. The current regulations would essentially allow for this. It's just a wooden enclosure And unfortunately, commercial applications, these are subject to deterioration, damage, and other issues over the span of time, being that they're used far more frequency in a commercial application than it would be for a non-for-profit or residential application. Even when they're repaired, they still tend to look out of place given the context. So the staff is proposing to amend the regulations to require that the exterior of the dumpster enclosure actually use materials similar to what is constructed on the building. It would provide for greater durability. It would also require a metal door system, which would be able to stand or withstand the increased demands associated with a commercial operation. The planning board did discuss this following the joint public hearing at the April 11th meeting and unanimously recommended approval as modified. That modification was discussed during the joint public hearing and is noted in the draft that's proposed. Staff does recommend the text amendment as modified. And I'm available if you have any questions. Additionally, we do have a sample motion if you feel to move forward with this item tonight.
Does the board have any questions?
I do. Oh, go ahead, please.
I have a question.
Yes.
How, with this new modification, will that affect the current businesses and the current structures of the dumpsters? Or if it doesn't, is there some type of regulation that is currently in place that will make sure that theirs is at least maintaining what it says currently?
Yeah, we do. Two-part question. First part, very good question in terms of can we retroactively enforce these regulations? And that answer is no, unless they come in to do modifications to their site, in which case, if they're doing anything that's going to involve the dumpster, we can require that it be brought up to current standards.
Okay.
In terms of enforcing those that cannot be or that are not being modified, anytime that you do see a situation where there's deterioration of a dumpster enclosure, please definitely contact the planning department. That is an item that our code enforcement officer can investigate and pursue enforcement action.
Thank you.
In some documentation that we received, it was stated that it would reduce code enforcement activity. Can you explain that to me, please?
Right now, as Commissioner Harrison kind of alluded to, we do have situations where these enclosures have actually deteriorated, and it causes the refuse that's supposed to be within the contained area to be blowing out. Frequently, we have it piled up next to the dumpster, which creates issues. And then finally, the condition of the dumpster enclosure itself. When somebody does call and complain about it, we do send our code enforcement officer out there to investigate it and then follow up with a notice of violation. With a far sturdier structure, in keeping with the commercial building standards, the visibility won't occur, it will not be blowing out because everything will be self-contained, and the durability of the new structure would be far superior than what's currently located there.
Okay. So is there a particular reason why we're pushing it now, this issue now? Is there anything that's kind of like troubling the community thus far? Is there a reason why we're bringing it on the agenda now?
We were doing an analysis of several of the businesses, and we noticed the condition of the dumpster enclosures, especially along the West Gannon corridor, as well as parts of North Arundel, that a lot of these were approaching disrepair or already in disrepair. Realizing that and looking at our existing regulations in ways to once again grow smart, improve efficiency, and help beautify our community, we felt that was appropriate to proceed with this now.
Okay. So it's, just to make sure, it's only when they begin to repair it again, they will be bringing it up to this code then,
Yeah,
correct?
either for new construction, serious site modifications, or if they have to reconstruct the dumpster enclosure entirely.
Okay.
It will not prohibit minor repairs. If a couple boards fall off or if a panel falls off and can just be put back on, they're able to make repairs, but otherwise, substantial modifications of the site will require full compliance.
All right, thank you.
Questions, comments? We need a motion.
I hereby move to approve ordinance 2022-40 to amend sections 5.3.1.h and 5.3.2.f, finding that the proposed amendments are an example of growing smart as called for in the 2030 strategic plan and consistent with the enhanced landscape and building design requirements for commercial land use types as indicated in the comprehensive land use plan. This is for ordinance 2022-40.
Have a motion?
Second.
All in favor? Motion passes. Next, Mike?
The next of the old business items is improving the landscape requirements around stormwater control measures. Right now, our regulations are fairly quiet when it comes to modifications around these stormwater control measures. It does allow for situations such as this that have the sod going right up to the water line. As we're all aware, in North Carolina, these ponds and stormwater control measures do fluctuate pretty substantially based on rainfall, being that we don't have soils that are well draining. Therefore, the area that's in constant fluctuation from the water, the sod doesn't typically grow well, and it creates a combination of environmental concerns. The proposed regulations would either require these ponds to be activated, such as an example in nearby Wendell, where they put a fountain in it, a path walking around it, as well as a fishing dock. That one improves visibility and creates an amenity feature out of the stormwater pond. Alternatively, vegetative landscaping. Granted, this is a fairly extensive example. It would more likely be something along these lines, which would be in keeping with the North Carolina NC State's Extension Office guidelines as proposed. It also enhances the natural habitat for not only fish and other animals within the pond, but also those surrounding the pond, creates a much more aesthetically pleasing environment and helps mitigate nitrates into the pond, as well as mitigate storm water that's going into the pond. I mentioned the environmental factors. The planning board did unanimously recommend these regulations following the joint public hearing at the April 11th meeting, and staff does recommend approval as submitted. And I'm available if you have any questions.
There's a couple words that need to be changed.
Okay.
Under B, I believe that instead of streets, you meant to put trees.
Yes, thank you.
So can you please change that in the UDO and in the ordinance as well? Okay.
Any other questions, comments?
Yes, I do. Who would be financially responsible for these upgrades and their maintenance, Mike?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Who would be financially responsible for these upgrades and their maintenance?
These would be, well, the upgrades would only be for new applications for developments coming forward, and that would be the developer's responsibility.
Okay.
The maintenance component would be subject to the HOA. It would not be town maintained, as the SCMs are privately maintained by the homeowners associations.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? We need a motion.
I hereby move to approve ordinance 2022-41 as amended to amend section 5.6.19, finding that the proposed amendment is an example of growing smart as called for in the 2030 strategic plan and consistent with a comprehensive land use plan strategy to protect the environment through unique landscapes and mature tree stands.
I second.
Need a second?
I second.
All in favor? Motion passes. New business, Parks and Recs, Juneteenth, Resolution 2022-14.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. Thank you for having me this evening. Coming to you to present some information with a private request to host a parade to celebrate Juneteenth. We do have a representative of the applicant. Once I've shared some information, if you have questions or if they'd like to provide comment, we have that opportunity. So as discussed during the 2020 retreat, the town can more efficiently and effectively create community events by indirectly encouraging and supporting private and nonprofit sectors in their efforts to host functions on public property and right-of-way. Indirect encouragement and support is accomplished through town infrastructure, such as the alley activation projects that provide space and electricity, and town services such as permitting, logistics, or operational support. Todd's Productions is a 501c3 nonprofit affiliated with Todd's LLC. They have submitted a request on April 8th to implement an event recognizing Juneteenth. The original scope included music, food trucks, vendors, bounce houses, horse rides, family-friendly activities, in addition to a parade. The requested event was to be part of a larger annual event series that is hosted by Todd's LLC on their property just outside of Zebulon. Event representatives are seeking to continue expansion of their event in future years and have stated a continued interest to include downtown Zebulon in their efforts. An interdepartmental team reviewed the event request, and the scope of the event had to be logistically planned as two separate events. Staff does not have the capacity to offer municipal services to support both at the same time. It was determined after a meeting with Todd's production representatives that the scope requested be reduced to the parade only, with hopes to expand in the future. The Parks and Recreation Department will work with Todd's Production and Zebulon First Baptist to determine if there's opportunity to incorporate components of a Juneteenth celebration with the artisan market. Attached to your staff report, you received an agreement. The agreement was consistent with that of the St. Patrick's Day event and has been reviewed by both the town attorney and our risk manager for the town's insurance. This agreement has been drafted for your consideration. Todd's Production will closely work with Zebulon Public Works and the police department to close the public right-of-way and oversee the event. The exact time needed for the road closure will be dependent upon the number of parade entries. Staff will only shut down roads when necessary to conduct the parade and maintain safety. Upon a policy review, this request does meet your goals of a vibrant downtown, small town life, and growing smart. Staff is currently in the process of drafting a special event policy for board consideration that we hope to have to you very soon. This will provide clear guidance for the board, the community, and staff moving forward. The discussion before the board is whether to close Barbie Street to Arundel Avenue, to West Sycamore Street to Wakefield Street, and ending on Barbie Street on Saturday, June 18th, 2022, in support of the event planned and implemented by Todd's Productions. If the board waives any fees associated with this event or any nonprofit, board members who serve in leadership positions on the nonprofit must identify their role and request recusal from the vote. We've offered 3 resolution options, same as we did in this process formally. Option A is to waive all staff-related fees. Option B is to waive fees for road closures, require payment of off-duty officers, and option C is to waive no fees.
Questions, comments from the board?
I have one.
Go ahead.
If I may read, in the spirit of full disclosure and transparency, I reached out to the town lawyer and was informed I must disclose that I previously worked with the Todd Productions on some events and was involved in the preliminary planning of a proposed festival that is not being recommended this year. I am not and have never been on the board of Todd Productions or Todd LLCs, nor do I have or have ever had a position of leadership with the organization.
Thank you.
Are there any associated costs from closing NCDOT roads?
The costs aren't more so than they would be for a town road. The process of closing that road is going to be the same.
Okay. And so just so that I understand the scope of the parade, it's going to be all of Barbie Street from Wakefield to Arundel, up Arundel to Sycamore, and then Sycamore back to Wakefield, back to Barbie.
Yeah, it's gonna come up Barbie, go down Arundel, go down Sycamore, and then down Wakefield back to Barbie.
Okay.
So it's the same square that they did last year.
Okay, okay. I just wanted to make sure that I
Yeah, it's just
was
being
adequately wrapping my head around
Yeah.
how it was described.
Their scope is expanded. Last year it was the horses, and this year it's being expanded beyond just horses.
And so there are going to be 25 parade slots with ATVs, 15 equivalent to one parade slot.
Yeah, so it's really hard. The applicant informed us that they anticipated the parade including horses, ATVs, walkers, floats, cars. So without any understanding of exactly how many entries they're gonna have, and you don't want like 100 ATVs necessarily all in one spot. So being able to separate them amongst the other parade entries is gonna be easier to manage the parade. So that's what the 15 was equivalent to one.
Okay, so if they had 30 ATVs, then they would have 23 remaining slots.
23, yes.
Okay, okay, all right, cool. Thank you so much.
That was
Thank
just
you.
the best way we found to navigate that.
No, I don't disagree. I was just trying to understand exactly, and make sure that I
Absolutely.
understood it correctly.
The forecasted expense would be much like the St. Patty's Day party with 2 public service and up to 9 police officers, or around $1,500. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, it's there's more involvement, so it's a little bit more expensive on the police side than the St. Patrick's Day event. On the St. Patrick's Day event, there were 3 police officers that were paid overtime, and then you also had police officers that are not hourly, they are salaried, that they were there in addition to support that. And so there is an expectation to have 9 officers that'll have to be paid overtime to support the parade.
And Todd Productions looks at this as kind of a seed event, much like St. Patty's Day, so we could kind of help kickstart it.
Absolutely, they see this as something that can grow and become much larger, something that can be, they already do something on their farm to kind of celebrate and tell the story, and Lisa Green's here with us more, and she might be the best one to tell that story. I don't know that I do it justice. They do great work in to tell the story of why they want to do it and how they want to expand it.
Thank you.
I have a question. So for the staff recommendations, the time frame that is listed in this paperwork says from 12 to 4:30. Is that the maximum amount of time depending on how many people enter or how many entries they have? I mean, will that time change, less, more? How do we look at that as far as their entries?
So right now, they don't have any parade entries yet. They didn't go through that process without knowing that the streets
Right.
would be closed. So it's hard to pin down exactly how long it's gonna take. So that's the maximum amount of time that we feel you would be able to get 25 parade
Okay.
entries in. Some areas of that road closure, it get really confusing for the community to say we might close it at this time. So we just want to say it's going to be closed from this time to this time. However, in working with the police department, if there's sections of that area, because you would kind of block off access to certain things, if we don't have to have it closed for public safety purposes, then we would keep it open until we had to close it. So
And if you don't have to have it that long, it won't be, okay. all right.
absolutely. We, kind of like with the St. Patrick's Day event, we asked for it to be closed until 6 o'clock, but it was back open by 3:30.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to just throw out to the board that we did not do any nonprofit funding this year, and I think that it's a wonderful event, and I would like to recommend that we waive all of the staff-related fees, at least for this fiscal year, and, revisit it, if they come back to us in the future for another event. But I would like to see us absorb those costs for this year. Thoughts?
I'm on board with
Is
that.
that included in option A?
Yes.
Yeah, that's option A.
Yes,
And-
option A was to waive all staff-related fees.
And if we do go with option A, it needs to be changed, the time needs to be adjusted to show 4:30. You have 4 p.m. instead of 4 p.m. In option A, you have 4 p.m.
Hang on a second. Okay.
Thank you. And then also, I do have a few questions too as well.
What was your question?
How is it determined how many off-duty police officers and public work officers are needed for an event?
I'll let Jackie answer.
Thank you.
She does a great job.
Good evening, how are y'all?
Good evening.
Basically, we assess the intersections that have to be closed down and how we're going to close them, and it's the intersections where we need the officers.
Yeah.
DOT roadways require a decent amount of management by the police department, so we do have to have quite a few officers along Arundel. And then we'll use some public works, like barricades at some of the side streets, but Arundel and Wakefield, Church Street, at Sycamore, the front of the parade, the end of the parade, it ends up quickly getting into some decent numbers.
So in the future, would it be like a standard formula? So people, in the future, we're not going to be kind of like assessing the cost, taking the cost on it. That's going to be a cost to private citizens. So will there be a formula for them to kind of use to kind of budget accordingly, or just kind of?
If the route remains the same, the number of officers would likely remain the same unless this event grows such that we have to start closing off blocks away from the parade to ensure public safety. But I think it would be a good model to go by for the next couple of years at least.
When I asked that question, I'm not just referencing just this event. I'm saying future events as well. So there will be a formula.
Maintain the same route, and the number of patrons coming to visit are roughly the same.
Thank you. I'm saying in reference also not just the Juneteenth event, but other events. So there will be a formula. All right, thank you.
I'd like to add to that. So in the event policy that we are bringing forward, it'll have some clearer guidelines to help navigate that. We're also, with that, going to present information that will be associated with the fee schedule so that it can be very clear for these purposes.
Okay. One more question. What types of events or factors would determine the amount of coverage, 1 million to 5 million, a licensee would be required to carry? And do we also have a formula of guidelines for people to be able to properly budget?
So you're talking about the insurance requirement?
Correct.
So if you ask our, so the North Carolina League of Municipalities is who our town insurance is with, and our coverage is $5 million. So if you were to call them and ask them, what should we require in a certificate of insurance for the town to be added as additionally insured, their advice is always going to be to equal what you were paying for, what you were covering. They understand and they recognize, and that's for our benefit just as much as theirs. They recognize and we recognize that the majority of people don't cover a $5 million policy. So there are times where we've worked with them to understand what are the risks associated with this, how likely is there to be an issue, is this a high-risk activity versus a non-high-risk activity, and is the town, is it in our best interest to have concessions on that $5 million to a $1 million policy?
Okay. With that said, last week at the City Vision in Wilmington, I was speaking with the same guy, I think our risk control guy, and he spoke to me about something called a gather guard. Would that be something that individuals can kind of access and it would be applicable to like events in the future?
So I'm aware, they also used to say, it's an insurance policy is
Correct.
what it is. So it's a product that is recognized by like the National Association of something.
League of Municipalities,
Yeah.
correct.
So it's something that they encourage for private insurance policies on public property. And so, yes, that is a product, and we have that information available, so be it for any of our rentals.
Correct.
If a person doesn't want to or doesn't know how to access insurance policies for things like events and rentals, we can provide them that with that information.
Okay, so it is information that we will make known to people.
Yeah, we have it on file for when
Okay.
we have those conversations.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Sheila,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to just ask the representatives from the Todds, I know that this event will be their seed event or the beginning. What is their vision moving forward for this event as far as it relates to our community? I know they have in the past been used to doing it on their property. So as we're moving it into the town, what is their plan moving forward, and how will the town continue to be included in whatever events they plan to do moving forward for Juneteenth?
Absolutely. I'll, go ahead. Did you have something else?
No.
Okay. I'll recognize Lisa Green. She is a representative for Todd's LLC and Todd's Productions, and you have the floor, lady.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for allowing us to speak. My name is Lisa Green. I'm the public communication representative for Todd LLC. I've been with them over 2 years, and my background is marketing and community relations. They wanted me to bring their greetings. 2 of them are firemen. They had called in, and the other one is a barber. He had class tonight, so I had to come here at the last minute, but I was going to be here with them anyway. They have great pride for the city of Zebulon. If you notice on Facebook and whatnot, they've been in the town recently, more than they have before. They have adopted Zebulon Rehab. They just took the horses up there on Tuesday on Harrison's birthday. That was his birthday gift to them. It said he got a birthday present from them just to see them smile. They also have adopted Zebulon Middle School and Eastwick High School, and they want to move forward. And they also want me to extend an invitation to y'all. They are a great economic impact on you all. They have over 3,200 people that come in town per event minimum, and Gannon Road do reciprocate from that. A lot of vendors come to visit the business on Gannon Road, and we want to bring that in the city. Also, they want to invite you to the Amazon Day. They have a lot of partners that could bring more economic impact to you all, like Amazon. Amazon is teaming up with them. It's one of their main sponsors. So is RH Banger and Healthy Blue. So they want to expand that and bring it in here and share it with you all. They believe that there's no I in team. Yes, it's a me in team, but they take the E out of me and we and make the effort. And say, take that, because none of us couldn't get here without the effort of all of us. So they want to bring it and just share the wealth with you. And they just want to be a part. And to grow the Juneteenth event, they just want to bring it in town, to take it off their property. They keep it on their property and make the value of it. They want to share the wealth with the town of Zebulon. So that's basically what they want to do, is to share. Drive footprints into your blueprint. That's going to be mental and physical and financial gain, as it has to them, and stay within the ordinance.
Thank you.
Okay, hope to see you there on May 14th from 11 to 4. Amazon will be out there, Healthy Blue, and we have tons of vendors and whatnot, and we're going to come down here and celebrate you with your spring fling.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
One just last statement, sir, from me. Overall, I just want you to know it's very encouraging to see us evolve in the overall process of vetting proposed events and overall engagement in the process. We have seemed to come a long way from February, and I'm hopeful that the process evolve as it does, and events and communities will benefit even more from us being more involved in the process, the planning and supporting the private sponsored public events. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the board? Is there a motion to approve the resolution? And which option?
I'd like to move to approve the option A for Resolution 2022-14 as amended.
And I second it.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, vehicle sale.
Evening again. As most of you know, the police department has a vehicle rotation policy that surpluses vehicles with excess mileage and high maintenance costs. This year, we surplused a 2012 Chevy Tahoe that was used by the police department in its operational fleet. In March of 2022, the Maysville Police Department crashed one of their patrol vehicles. Maysville is located on the southeast edge of Jones County and has a population just over 800 people. They do not have the funding to purchase a car to replace their crashed police car and learned about our surplus Tahoe from one of our vendors. Maysville solicited our town's interest in selling the Tahoe to them in lieu of auction. The town typically sells surplus items through the North Carolina Department of Administration State Surplus Property Agency or through public auction through a service such as govdeals.com. We've also sold surplus items via direct sale when approached by other municipalities, the most recent of which was a fire truck that we sold to Middlesex. We've also been the beneficiary of other larger agencies selling us their surplus equipment and feel it's appropriate for us to pass it forward. A resolution's been prepared authorizing the sale in accordance with general statute, and the discussion before the board is whether to surplus the 2012 Chevy Tahoe to the North Carolina Department of Administration State Surplus Property Agency or via direct sale to the town of Maysville. Happy to answer any questions.
I have one statement, should I say, if I may read it, if I could, please. I like the idea of helping out other towns and police departments. However, my concern is if we find this vehicle to be unfit for our own police officers, how can we in good conscience sell the vehicle to another police department who is already struggling and potentially put their officers in harm's way? That's a question. How can we sell?
Or a question.
That's a question. How can we sell the vehicle that's not fit for our police officers, but yet we sell it to another police department in good conscience?
Yeah. The vehicle is not unusable. It's to a point where it has excess mileage and the maintenance costs are increasing. It is in fair condition. And I think the city of Maysville, the town of Maysville, is in a position where they can go without a patrol vehicle and not have a resource to have their officers be accessible to the community, or they can have a vehicle in fair condition, and the choice is to have a vehicle in fair condition.
So they were banking on us actually surplus of the vehicle. What if we weren't surplus in our vehicle? What would they do then?
I don't know. I would imagine they would seek options from other police departments.
Any other questions?
Now, $9,000 is the insurance claim, what they're going to be reimbursed
On their crashed vehicle.
on their
correct.
crashed vehicle. And the current market value is probably around $12,000 for the Tahoe.
Correct.
And I know that state surplus gets an 8% commission on sales. So even if we were to sell the vehicle for $12,000, we, in essence, would only be making $11,040 or thereabouts. I'm assuming, you know, because there's the fee that we get charged. So I guess we're being asked to, in some way, gift the town of Maysville $2,040.
We're being asked to do a favor for a
Okay.
neighboring community, yes.
Okay.
I'll make a motion, we adopt Resolution 2022-15.
A second.
There's been a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Public Works.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. To follow up on the chief's conversation, we come before you tonight to ask you to approve electronic public auction sale of vehicles which have reached the end of their useful service life. Tonight, we ask you to request you to surplus a black 2012 Chevy Tahoe with the last four VIN numbers of 5327 from the police department. We also ask you to surplus a silver 2012 Charger with the last four VINs of 6235 from the police department, a white 2015 Dodge Charger with the last four VIN of 1905 from the police department. We also ask you to surplus a 2006 Ford Expedition, the last four VINs 2704 from the Public Works via fire via planning. And we also ask you to surplus a 2008 Leaf truck with the last four VIN numbers of 0491. Staff recommends that the cars and SUVs be sold at state surplus for auction. We, as the chief mentioned, had a successful history of sales there. Also, we are recommending that the 2008 Freightliner Leaf truck be sold on Gov Deals. The reason selecting that from the state surplus is to gain a wider audience for a specialty vehicle. Just a note for public record is all revenue from the sale of vehicles will go into the Fleet Capital Reserve. And tonight we ask you to approve Resolution 2022-16 to auction the vehicles and the SUVs. And then we also ask you to approve Resolution 2022-17 to approve the auction of the Leaf truck. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Questions, comments from the board?
Just one quick question from me. If you could explain a little bit about the maintenance log on these vehicles for me, that'd be great.
Yes, we have maintenance logs that are kept at Public Works for the vehicles that are Public Works. The maintenance logs for these other vehicles are kept by the police department since they provide the maintenance on those vehicles through their contractors.
Prior to this meeting, I met with you and asked you to kind of like bring an example of. Did you bring those tonight for me, please?
Sir, we're preparing those and we'll be presenting them to the manager for distribution to you at a later date.
I'm so sorry, I didn't hear what was requested.
Prior to this meeting, I had met with Chris Ray and asked him to bring some maintenance logs for me.
Okay, thank you.
And he was supposed to bring them tonight, so I
Thank
want
you.
to take a look at them.
I have a question about the Leaf truck.
Yes, ma'am.
We just bought a Leaf truck because we were told that our current Leaf truck couldn't keep up. So this new Leaf truck that we have is fully capable of servicing our entire municipal area at this point and into the future for how long?
The typical useful life of a Leaf truck is 12 to 15 years, depending on use and volume. We are fortunate that this board has appropriated. I actually have a second Leaf truck that is on a swap loader body that can meet the truck, means the truck can be used as a dump truck when not in use for leaf body. And also during peak leaf seasons or when the other truck is down, we can change the body out and collect leaves. So in reality, I have two Leaf trucks that can serve our community.
Once this one goes to surplus?
Once this one goes, yes, ma'am. I have three on my lot right now, including this one.
Okay. Do you have potential values for sales for each of the vehicles for me?
I can estimate based on some of the stuff.
That's fair. That's fair.
And clearly, I would want to note that the used car market right now is extremely hot, so hopefully we could do a little better. As the chief mentioned, the two Tahoes are basically the same, so we're projecting around $12,000 for that. Hope to maybe potentially do better, but we'll see. The Dodge Charger, the 2012, I would say around $6,500. I'm not as optimistic about the 2015 Dodge Charger. It has got a very loud knock and noise in the engine, to so much my fleet mechanic does not even want to drive it at this time. He wants to put it up on a trailer just to ensure liability. So I'm thinking that's going to be in the $35,000 to $4,000 range. And then the Ford Expedition, it's probably 45 to 5 because it's four-wheel drive and relatively low miles. And probably the largest asset that we're selling here is the Leaf truck, and it has the potential to gain over $30,000.
Okay, so I guess my next question is, it was my understanding that when you sold through state surplus, that there weren't inspections, not that I'm trying to pull one over on anyone, folks, but how would they know that vehicle is under
Yes, in good faith and order. When we list a vehicle, we list the known defects on it, and so this one will clearly have a note on it that the engine is knocking. Typical ones that go up there will say the paint scratch, dent, or it's got a check-in engine light on it. We do try to be honest and share all relevant information that we have.
Sure, thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other comments? Questions from the board? Is there a motion?
I make a motion we adopt Resolution 2022-16 and 17.
No motion, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, and I look forward to seeing those maintenance logs as well.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Roadway and storm drainage.
Tonight we come before you for your consideration of bids for the 2022 roadway and storm drainage project. This year we combined 4 smaller projects together in the goal of trying to get some economies of scale and attract bidders in this very competitive market. Just as a reminder, this project consisted of our annual street surfacing, which included Yates Place, Wellington, Southland, and East Vance Street. It also included the completion of East Jones Street, which is between Hendricks Drive and Dogwood, the 2 small sections that were missing. We also included in this is the East Vance Street storm drainage repair. There's the pipe that goes up under the East Vance Street in front of the fire department. And then also the last thing we bid as an alternate was the Highway 264 off-ramp improvement. The project was advertised on March 3rd in the News and Observer and the North Carolina Administration of Hub Businesses website and the Town of Zebulon's website. We also reached out to 10 local bidders that we had experience with doing these type of projects over the last several years. Unfortunately, on March 24th, we only received 2 bids. North Carolina General Statutes requires us to receive 3 bids for formal projects in excess of $500,000. So we immediately re-advertised the project and reached out even further, and besides email notification, I personally spoke to over 9 different contractors and encouraged them to participate in our bidding process. On April 14th, Narian Construction, their name has changed, provided the lowest bid at $925,351.05. Unfortunately, that is significantly over our bids. A lot of that is due to the material and labor shortages, rising fuel costs. I want to give you a couple examples of how the market has drastically affected our bidding process. Last year in our street resurfacing project, we had asphalt tonnage was around $72 a ton. This year, the low bid was $152 a ton, 111% increase. Just like you're seeing in your fuel tanks, that is going directly to our bottom line on our fuel, to our asphalt prices. And in this project, we had over 1,550 tons of asphalt to be put down in one place or another. We're not the only ones that seeing these high market prices. A couple examples, Wake County recently put a Parks and Rec project on the street. They had no bidders. That's unheard of for Wake County to have no bidders. Secondly, City of Raleigh, you may have seen this on the WRL News, Six Forks project. Their original estimate was $33 million. Now they have estimates in excess of $56 million, which is approximately a 70% increase. And the last one I'll share with you is one of our neighbors is Holly Springs. Had a $16 million roadway project that was bid, came in at $21 million. Clearly, none of us were happy with the bids. Unfortunately, it's a sign of the labor market, material market, and fuel market that we're dealing with. So tonight we come before you taking into consideration that due to the bids, we can't afford everything. So tonight we're recommending awarding the annual resurfacing and East Vance Storm Drainage Project to Narian Contracting and approving budget ordinance 2022-43, appropriating Powell bill reserves to cover the shortfall, and budget ordinance 2022-44, appropriating the stormwater capital reserves to complete the East Vance Street project. At this time, we are not recommending completion of Jones Street or completion of the widening at 64 off-ramps. I'll be glad to take any questions that you may have.
Even though the off-ramp widening is not being recommended, I have a question about that.
Yes, ma'am.
Because when, at some point, I-87 comes through, isn't that going to adjust things anyway?
It has the potential to adjust it. The reason mainly we're recommending not doing it is the project is too small. The mobilization, the traffic control costs associated with this project are just too high. It needs to be tied to a larger project to get some economies of scale to get that work done. And then potentially there is some movement potentially with I-87, but that's quite a bit down the road.
Yeah. And so tell me exactly where we see this final total bid, because it looks, is that the page 15? The 925?
925, yes, ma'am. If you look on the second page of the staff report, there's a breakdown of the 4 projects. Street resurfacing at 282, Jones Street at 437, East Vance Street at 132, and 64 off-ramp at 73, bringing you a total of 925, 351.05.
So since we're not doing the Jones Street completion or the 64 off-ramp widening, it will be a shortfall of like 187? Is that correct?
That is correct. 108 plus 78, so yes, 187, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you are recommending that we dip into the Powell bill?
Reserves, yes, ma'am.
Reserves for that? Okay.
And dip into the stormwater reserves for the East Vance Street piece.
And what's the total of our reserves for the stormwater?
Let me just recap all of them since Bobby provided those to me. Your Powell bill reserves at this time are $330,000. I'm rounding off a little bit here. Street capital reserves are $126. Your stormwater capital reserves are $133. And then we have unassigned fund balance at $7.7 million.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple
questions.
I have a couple questions.
Yes, sir.
In reference to kind of like our advertising of bids, is there a way we can cast our net a little bit broader, wider when we first advertise? Is there a way of doing that?
The N&O is a true go-to place for advertisements. It meets all the statutory requirements. The North Carolina Department of Administration Hub website also has tremendous amount of traffic for minorities in the town's website. I'm open. Of course, every time we do a bid, we have contractors that have expressed interest to be on our bidders list, and we email them directly. But if you have other resources, we'd be glad to extend to them. Sometimes they do incur costs for those additional advertisements, but we're open to any considerations and recommendations.
Okay. We're looking at, it sounds as if go with Narian. With Narian, have we used them before?
Yes, sir. Narian Contractor is probably a contractor who's done work for me over 25 years. They recently just completed the Greenway project that we took tour on Beaver Dam Creek. They were the contractor there and the low successful bidder. And we just made final payment to Narian Contracting at the concurrence from NCDOT. So they are a preferred vendor, do have a history with us of completing quality projects for us. They've also completed quality projects for the stadium and Wake County at 5 County Stadium.
Okay. So, go ahead. So we use them, so they're pretty much, they are a minority-owned business, correct me if I'm wrong. It's like the president is a female, correct?
Narian is a minority-owned business. They are woman-owned, they're Hub certified and a DBE certified.
So with that said, I read the good faith effort affidavit and understand that to mean that contractors have put good faith towards including minority business, but does not necessarily mean they will contract with minority businesses?
They basically, being a contract minority, they meet our requirements for minority participation. They also went through good faith efforts through our policies and procedures to extend contracts to other minorities and offer them incentives such as quick turnaround on payment, assistance with bonds, and other things. So they went through a exercise where they had to extend minority efforts out to other minority contractors, and they met that requirement of our formal bid.
So do we have regulations in place where we can hold them accountable? Is that something we can do?
Absolutely, sir. Our MBE policy at the completion of the project is called MBE 6 form. They have to complete and show how much minority participation was actually completed on the job.
How about for as local vendors, just people in Zebulon? Can we hold them accountable?
It does not as far as go as local as being Zebulon. It does go as far as being in this area, working this area, for whether it's from Durham, Rocky Mount, Wilson, etc. As long as they meet the requirement for MBE, they meet it. It's not just being Zebulon. There's no local preference, if that's what you're getting at.
I'm asking, is that something we can do to do that? Ensure that kind of keep charity starts at home, spread abroad type mentality?
Local preference, my understanding, and I'll probably get the attorney to kick in a little bit, local preference is generally frowned upon. They want it to be inclusive of all and not just to local vendors. But that's something we can research and bring back to you. That is not a topic that I am an expert on, sir.
Who would be that expert?
I can get you the information, or I can help the attorney. We can get you something if we can do local preference bidding.
Okay. Is that something he said we can get with you and kind of get where we can have local preferences as far as like bidding wise? Is that something we can do? Or?
Generally speaking, bidding has to be done without discrimination one way or the other. Obviously, there are certain minority policies that can be looked into, but even those are not necessarily mandates. They're just requests that people use minority businesses where possible. And if they don't have minority business participation, they have to give a reason why. But generally speaking, there are nothing you can do to discriminate to prefer one bidder over another. It's a low bid.
So I'm not just minority, I'm saying reference local business vendors here as well, so there's nothing we can do. Okay. And one last question. Can you explain what power bills are, reserve power bills?
Power bill reserves are basically the dollars that you collect from fuel tax. So every time we go to the gas station, you and I, we pay approximately 50 cents a gallon for fuel tax. That is collected by the state and then distributed annually, semi-annually to the town based on population and miles of street.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Our street paving schedule, we still going by that?
Yes, sir.
The formula?
Yes, sir.
As far as which street needs paving?
Yes, sir. That formula that you're referring to considers 10 characteristics. That survey is conducted annually by my staff. Mr. Jason Brown leads that up, and we basically, the 4 streets that we're paving this year are the 4 lowest paved streets. So it's all about street condition.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments, questions from the board? Is there a motion?
Do we adopt both ordinances at once? Does that include everything?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you
If
do
you
it
do
in
both of them,
separate? Separate?
Yeah, do it together.
Okay, I make a motion to adopt ordinance 2022-43 and ordinance 2022-44 to do the roadway and storm drainage construction, enter a contract with Naren Construction.
I second.
A motion and a second. All in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Board appointments.
We have 2 vacancies in town on the planning board and 1 ETJ vacancy. We have had people resign their positions. We have received 2 applications. One is from Stephanie Jenkins for reappointment, and that would be if you were an ETJ member. And then Ginya Newkirk has applied to fill one of the in-town vacancies. She is currently serving on 2 other boards, Parks and Recreation and the Board of Adjustment. This was her choice. Originally, she wanted to be on the planning board. So it's up to the board to determine, what they would like to do with these appointments.
Questions, comments from the board?
I love Ms. Newkirk's willingness to participate and donate her time. I think that's really absolutely so admirable. Having said that, I think having one person on 3 boards is maybe a little bit excessive for what we're trying to accomplish. Just my thought.
Yeah, I agree. Is there a plan for Ms. Newkirk to drop another board or just to be on all 3? Do you have the answer?
She was not really interested in the Board of Adjustment when she was appointed to that one. So I am surmising, I don't know for a fact because I have not asked her this question, if that would be the board she would want to give up if you were to appoint her to the planning board. But she is interested in the planning board first, so I think she would be willing to give up either one of the other boards.
Can we reach out to her, please?
She's here.
She's here.
And ask?
She's here.
No, I know that she's back there, but
Could we?
would you mind approaching? Thank you so much. Oh, whoops.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to stand before you. And I agree, serving on 3 boards is a bit excessive, but I will like to just share a little bit of my background. I've served on local government, state government, all the way up. I am a military veteran. I was an officer in the military, so I know what it's like to work hard and to work diligently. I, as it stands right now, do not have a problem serving on all 3 boards because the Board of Adjustments, I've not been active. However, if that's going to cause an issue for me to be on the planning board, I would like to resign that appointment because, as stated, my first choice was planning board. However, I am a new resident to Zebulon. I've been here a year and a half, and I am absolutely in love with this small town. Being from a small town, Pender County, we do not have this type of involvement, so I'm impressed. And I want to be involved because that involvement brings knowledge that I can share with my community and my family. I have a little one in the house. And so just to be able to be a part and to show her that hard work accomplished positive goals, I'm for it. I'm for it.
Any other questions? Comments?
Well, I think that if you're willing to maybe step down from the Board of Adjustment, then we can do that lateral move for you. I feel. What do you guys think?
I agree.
Agreed.
Awesome. You're awesome. Thank you.
Thank
for
you.
your service.
Thank you a lot.
We would need a motion to that.
I'd move to approve the application by Ms. Newkirk and appoint her to the planning board.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion passed.
Do we need a motion first?
Did we need?
Yeah, I'll also make a motion to reappoint Stephanie Jenkins to the planning board as the
Second.
ETJ member.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
We have a second, all in favor? Motion passes.
All right, then we have one position open, or we have two positions open on the Parks and Recreation Board, but we only have one person who has applied, which is Brandon Wiggins, who would like to be reappointed to that board.
I make a motion to appoint Brandon Wiggins to the Parks and Rec? Is it Parks and Rec? For the Parks and Rec Advisory Board.
And I second that.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Motion passes.
Ms. Markland, can you give us a breakdown of where we have openings now? Can you
Yes,
do
I will
that?
send out an email tomorrow.
All right,
And that way,
fantastic.
everybody will get it, and I know exactly who's where.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Budget presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight you are presented with your budget message for the fiscal year 2022-23. Outline of what we'll cover tonight, statutory requirements. Much like the bidding process, the statutes overseeing the budget adoption are prescribed, which is unusual, but because of that, I'll need to touch a few bases with you on that. Then we'll preview what the budget schedule and the process is associated with adoption. Primary presentation tonight is the budget message, which is the overview of the budget that will be presented to you. So as far as statutory requirements, you'll find it in General Statute 159. It's called the Local Government Budget and Fiscal Control Act. It requires that before April 30th, the departments submit their budget requests and revenue estimates. As you know from the essentials of the local government, the budget police don't come and investigate you if you don't meet that deadline, but we did receive both operating and capital budget requests from the departments before that date. And then not later than June 1st, you are to receive the budget and the budget message. It will exceed that by a month since your regular meeting is after the June 1st. That's why we present it to you at the regular meeting in May. Before you adopt a budget ordinance, you'll need to hold a public hearing that is scheduled for June 6th. And then not later than July 1st, you'll need to adopt a budget ordinance. After adopting the budget, you can modify the budget in a couple of ways. And one of the ways you routinely experience when I come up here and I recognize Mr. Fitz to do some budget adjustments, the budget officer has some authority to make some line item to line item transfers. You also, as a board, have authorities to make adjustments to the budget during the year. A couple of ways that you do that is the budget officer, myself as the town manager, has limited authority to make transfers. And so when that limit is exceeded, you as a board have to make those modifications. The other way that you make modifications was alluded to, well, actually you did it tonight, was to appropriate funds from a capital reserve. So you made two appropriations from capital reserves because capital reserves are overseen and authorized by you. You alone are the ones that are authorized to do that. So you can make budget adjustments throughout the year. I mention that for statutory reasons. I also mention it to you because it's going to be relevant when we talk about the capital budget that I'm going to talk about later in the presentation. What you can't do, however, is change the tax rate. Once you adopt the tax rate, that tax rate is in effect for the year, so you can't change it mid-cycle. All right, as far as the budget schedule and process, again, budget message is being presented to you tonight. Statutorily, you'll need to hear about the goals and features of the budget that's being recommended, and you'll need to have illustrated what are the changes from the previous year, both in the programs and the appropriations. You'll have your first budget work session on May 10th. Second one is scheduled for May 18th. These are on 8-day cycles. Budget work session 3 is on the 26th. Then you'll have your budget public hearing on the 6th, and then you'll be eligible to adopt the budget ordinance once the public hearing is complete. So you can adopt it that night, as long as you don't adopt it later than July 1st. Talk about capital project appropriation. I'm approaching and recommending this budget a little bit differently than I have in years past, and I have to do a lot with the fact that you all have not been a fully formed board until relatively recently, and so you have not had the opportunities to discuss how to allocate capital projects, how to fund them. So in the budget ordinance that will come before you, there's very limited general fund balance that's used. We are going to make the recommendation that you continue with the mini retreat process, having one in August to finish up updating your strategic plan, the work that you started at this past mini retreat, to talk about how to appropriate funds for the capital projects that you consider to be the highest priority at a September mini retreat. And let me elaborate on that a little bit more. So we have, as an example, a lot of transportation projects that are at various phases. And when you consider a bond referendum to fund those transportation projects, you're going to need to have a good working estimate. And the projects, depending upon where they are in the phase, we're not at a place where we can give you a good, solid construction cost estimate because they're at various stages. Some of them are still in design, some of them are still in permitting, some of them are in property acquisition. And so we want to be able to give you more concrete numbers at the September mini retreat so that you will be in a position at your October mini retreat to start discussing drafting a bond referendum. So that's the intent, where while this is after adopting the budget, it will give you the time to assign capital funds to capital projects. All right. As far as the budget message, let me just pause, see if there's any questions before I get into the next phase.
I have one concerning our meeting on the 18th. That may be a conflict with me. That's my Campo meeting, and it runs from 4 to 6. I certainly don't want to run right out of Campo and come to a budget meeting. If we can consider changing that date.
So, Mayor, what we could do is at your next budget work session, we can come back with some options for you to reschedule that date.
Thank you.
Could you do a different time? Could you do a later time?
Yeah, as long as it's
Yeah, I
not
know.
right.
Because I'm on Campo with you, I know.
Yeah.
It's tough to have it wrap up at 6. Okay,
It could
cool.
be, it could be at a later time.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, let's get into the budget message. So the goals and features, as with every budget, because the budget is a policy document, it is in effect where you place the money into what you value. So we always look back to the strategic plan. What is the vision of the town? And as you've heard even tonight with some of the volunteers who want to serve on your advisory boards, that we recognize we're a vibrant, growing community that wants to maintain its small town charm and heritage. Our mission, our purpose at the town of Zebulon is we enhance the quality of life for our residents. We deliver not only excellent service, but we deliver friendly service. And as you also saw tonight with the collaboration with the Juneteenth parade, we realize that we can't do it, nor should we all do it all on our own, and we're most successful when we collaborate with others, most specifically the nonprofit and the private sector. So that's our purpose. And then we focus on that. Again, you've heard this mentioned before, focusing on 3 areas. These 3 areas, they represent the composite of all the comments we heard in the development of the strategic plan. So what you will hear tonight are some samples of what is in the proposed budget, and they will fall into the focus areas of vibrant downtown, growing smart, and small town life. So a real quick snapshot of each of the focus areas. The goals of Vibrant Downtown is to revitalize downtown and to attract people downtown. The issues or the challenges to that is that the redevelopment costs of those buildings downtown is very expensive. They're old, they haven't been tended to, the building code has changed. And so retrofits like this building on North Arundel, while it looks great on the outside, internally the property owners had to go in and completely gut that property. There's also no public space. So we have to close public right-of-way, street right-of-way, or we have to utilize the public space that we have. We've uncovered a network of alleyways And so we've started to, well, we've actually completed the second phase of that, where we've uncovered part of our alleyways. We activated them by making them attractive and approachable, but also we've made them functional as well. So water and electricity and Wi-Fi are enclosed in those alleyways. As far as the budget that is presented to you, one of the big features is to recognize expanding the activation of the alleys by utilizing the congressional earmark that we received in the FY22 appropriation bill through Representative Price's office. And I don't have the pointer in front of me. Yes, I do. So the two phases that we mobilize are right there and right there. So it's right in there. And what we're looking to do with this appropriation is expand into that area right behind the fire station and ultimately complete these alleyways so they can connect with the greenway that will go down to Little River Park and connect with the greenway that will go down to Five County Stadium. So that's going to be one appropriation, is to recognize those federal funds to expand the alleyway. And then the Main Street program, thanks in large part to our very energetic and productive Downtown Associate Community Coordinator, Teresa Piner. We are a year and a half ahead of schedule, and the North Carolina Main Street program through the Department of Commerce has notified us that we are eligible to become fully designated as a North Carolina Main Street community. With that comes some responsibilities of funding, of having a full-time coordinator, or at least full-time hours, as well as supporting the travel and training to go to conferences and to, if you have a board that oversees the Main Street program, which you will, to get them trained and have them participate in those conferences as well. So again, good work. We're in a position to move to the next step and get that designation, but it will cost money, and so that is included in the budget that is coming before you. Next focus area, growing smart. You've heard us say before that we have to coordinate land use with our transportation network in order to be sustainable. We have to increase our staffing both in the capacity as far as to address the volume needs, but to increase the capabilities, meaning the skill sets of our employees to handle not only the growth of our community, but the diversification of our community. And then economic development, not to grow for growth's sake, not to try to keep up with someone else's growth, but try to target the attributes that we have and go and select and solicit particular economic development opportunities. Some of the challenges is the fact that we're already growing. So that's a picture of a 2-lane farm-to-market roadway. What was next to, at the time, a former farm. The farms are now redeveloping. The 2-lane road network is still in place. So we're already growing, and we're getting older. As you've seen, experience, some of our storm drains have collapsed, and that's understandable given that some of them are almost as old as the age of the town. So as far as the budget that is presented to you, it will include increases in staffing in police and fire. It includes not only the more hours for the contract of the Main Street program, but it also includes an economic development specialist. As you saw in visiting our industrial park, we are doing very well in attracting, naturally attracting, meaning without incentives, niche manufacturing. They're looking to grow. There's ways that we can help them grow. There's also ways that we can solicit and attract others that are doing similar things. Public Information Officer, if you look at the top right of that screen right there, that's the logo that we are currently using. That logo will change when a brand is adopted. When a brand is adopted, we're going to have to be very mindful to police and protect that brand. And so Public Information Officer will fulfill part of that role. The other thing is you have experienced, and you're not alone in this, the traditional news market is adapting and they're becoming more regional, and they're not covering as much local coverage. And you're also seeing an increase of independent social media. And so if a town is not out there putting information out there as a way to not only keep their community informed, but also to engage their community to participate, this is going to be our approach right now of committees of different departments doing different things. We're going to have to be more effective and more cohesive on this. So that would be the other function of the public information officer. You will hear presented at your first work session recommendation to use American Rescue Plan funds to improve and upgrade some of the big storm drain projects that are downtown. And then transportation, we're going to propose something a little bit new this year, and I've already mentioned it. While you do have dedicated revenue that is for transportation improvements, so transportation impact fees that your developers pay, the Powell bill that has already been mentioned, the portion of your property tax, all that's dedicated to transportation. But rather than assigning additional funding for particular projects, we're going to hold off on that until we have a better assessment of where these projects are as they get closer to construction before we put them before you, and you all can determine which of those projects has the highest priority. And then the final focus area is small town life, increasing walkability, meaning connecting neighborhoods to commercial areas, connecting neighborhoods to neighborhoods, but also increasing connectedness, which is that interpersonal connection of neighbors getting to know neighbors. The challenges are we've got gaps in our system, physical gaps in the sidewalks. Also, we've got a lot of people that are moving into the area. The price point was attractive. They were attracted to small town life, but they don't necessarily know their neighbor. And so the items that are proposed in the budget before you are means to address both the gap and those interpersonal relationships. First thing is to mention that anything we do related to vibrant downtown is going to address small town life. So I won't repeat the things that were in small town or were in vibrant downtown, but anything that's done there helps with the small town life. The events being an example. We'll continue with community engagement. We're having good community engagement on a couple of fronts, and one of which you heard tonight, which is the public-private partnerships on events. But we're also having good community engagement where members of the community are wanting to come out and do litter pickups along our roadways. You'll have an opportunity to expand your placemaking. So right now you're heavily focused on your downtown. As part of the Parks and Rec Master Plan, there was some requirements in the scope of work to develop site plans. That first site plan up is the site plan for Little River Park. This is also very good timing in conjunction with Wake County. They are looking to kick off a concept plan for their reservoir, which they look to connect via Greenway with Little River Park. So some really good synergies and excellent timing. Plans, relatively speaking, are cheap, and then how you move forward with that is going to be, how you fund it, to be more specific, is going to be an example of conversations that you'll have with those fall mini retreats. West Sycamore sidewalk, so that was funded this past year. The board funded it, but they asked that it be placed on hold, so that's going to roll over. Whether you use it for West Sycamore or whether you use it for another sidewalk, that's going to be another example of one of those conversations that we put before you, the fall mini retreats. This picture right here, that is the North Arundel sidewalk that was completed to connect the Wakeland Heights community with downtown.
Is this a crosswalk, or you're talking about a sidewalk?
I'm talking about so this is a picture of a crosswalk, but the West Sycamore sidewalk was actually the construction of the sidewalk between Arundel and Church. And then you will adopt a brand this coming fiscal year, and you'll be in a position and you will have funds that will roll over on how you execute that brand. You can do it through logo, you can do it through wayfinding, but those funds will roll over so you can implement, as you best see fit, the brand that you adopt. All right, so I do need to talk about changes, but any questions on the budget message and the focus areas?
Just one quick question. caught my attention about the storm drains. You said some of the American Relief Funds. Do we have like a kind of like number already in mind with that amount of funds?
Yeah, so the town has already received, is it close to 900,000? So we'll receive with our second tranche 1.8 million. And so what we'll put before you is this is the project, and will the 1.8 cover it or not? And if you want to use the American Rescue Plans to do that, then you can do that. Or if you want to add more projects or direct those funds in a different area.
Okay.
But we have, and we'll give you more detail at the work session, but we have two candidates that we're going to put before you. We've completed a stormwater assessment, and these, much like the streets, are the highest priority projects that need the improvements.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments? Okay, changes from this year to last year. So the revenues, around 14.6 million. The revenues are dropped from 15 million last year, not for the reasons that will probably be apparent to you. Property tax revenue actually increased. That's in part because we're growing, but also this budget recommends a property tax increase. You heard from Bobby Fitz about how the revenue neutral rate that was adopted 2 years ago, it actually was not a revenue neutral rate. The property tax base shrunk, and so we adopted a property tax rate that was artificially low. Also, any community that adopts a revenue neutral rate within a year, that rate is no longer keeping pace with the growth. So we can give you more detail about the justification for the increase, but one of the reasons for the increase in property tax revenue is growth in the community, so the tax base is growing, but also the recommended tax rate increase. Sales tax continues to do really well. Restricted intergovernmental. So again, this is an example of this is POW bill. So when we get gas tax, it can only go to streets. That has increased. I'm thinking that it's increased in part because our number of streets have grown. I think it's probably more indicative that our population has grown and the state is giving more funds to this. So the amount of gas tax that we get is dependent upon the mileage of streets we maintain, the population, as well as what the state gives out as far as funding. Sales and service, these are fees that we charge for services. There's an expected drop there from last year. And investment earnings, I don't know why I show this to you other than just to realize that you're not going to get rich as far as investing. We're just restricted too much by the state on what kind of investments that we can make. Repeat of something that you heard from the auditors. So the at the conclusion of FY20, your comprehensive annual financial report, you had $12 million fund balance. The last auditor that presented to you, that fund balance has grown to 14.2. For this fund balance, you've got 7.7 million, as Mr. Ray alluded to, that has no attachments to it whatsoever. The only thing that's attached to that is how low will you go and still be able to retain your credit rating? How low will you go and still be in compliance with your policy to retain a certain percentage of fund balance? Now, the policy you can change. That's your threshold. The credit rating, that's going to be determined by someone else. Restricted, so this is the revenues that we talked about. We have savings of unused POW bill. The POW bill funds can only be used for a particular use. Another example of restricted fund balance is anytime a developer pays a transportation impact fee, that has to be used for that use. So even though it's savings with particular conditions attached to it that you have no latitude to deviate from. Where you do have latitude is those that get wrapped up into the committed. So these are savings that you have locked up into a reserve account, storm drain reserve account, street reserve account, fleet reserve account. Those are funds that you can pull out of those reserve accounts and you can use them for those purposes, or you can pull them out and use them for a different purpose. And then the assigned, these are funds that are attached to projects. We are going to come before you in June and have the assigned fund balance that have been assigned to those particular projects last year to roll over so we can keep those projects moving forward. As far as the expenditure side, expenditures 14 million compared to 50 million last year. The operating expenditures for this budget is higher than last year, but the capital is much lower. Again, we did not pull from fund balance because we wanted to grant you all the opportunity to decide how best to use that fund balance for these capital projects. The debt that we do have is marginally declining, so I put that there to make you aware that we do have debt. Most notably, we're carrying the debt on this building. We will continue to carry that until the year 2030. Hey, the big changes that are in the budget that are before you are related to the personnel. So I mentioned before, we've got an operating budget of $12.8 million. That includes 2 police officers. So this is consistent with what you saw at the community needs assessment presentations. 2 firefighters, again, consistent with the community needs assessment that you saw at your February work session. A change here, when we approached you in February with the work session on the firefighters, we listed 3 firefighters for next fiscal year. Wake County has some concerns with this. They have some expectations of what it takes to have a minimum service response, as well as the number of calls that we are responding to in our area. And so while we have recognized it as a need for next year, they are coming forward with funding for that this year with the understanding that we would pick it up next year. This is a mid-year adjustment that we made in the fiscal year that we're in. We closed out some part-time funding. We're just not getting the service response that we need, and so we converted a part-time position to full-time. This is coming before you just to make a change to the salary schedule. You'll also see an engineer. I've put both planning and public works here because I see right now that they'll have responsibilities related to storm drainage, so that be storm drainage review and planning, but as well as oversight of the state national pollutant discharge elimination system permit that you have with the state. As I mentioned, the economic development specialist, the transition from part-time hours of the Main Street or downtown associate community coordinator to the Main Street program coordinator, full-time hours. Public Works has requested, and it's listed in here, a service technician, someone where if there's a question or a need, a quick need that a citizen has, or someone to supply a crew rather than pulling someone off the crew. This is someone who can be more responsive to delivering items to the crew as well as responding to citizen requests. 3-person crew that was requested is not in this recommended budget. We've got some vacancies that I think we need to address before we start asking for more people. So we'll address the vacancies, and then if we need additional people, then we'll come back to you and have a discussion about that. The assistant director, this had a lot of engineering responsibilities. I did not put this as a recommendation. I think the engineer can take care of a lot of things that were identified in that. Again, we'll assess as we go. Okay, let me talk a little bit about merit. I'm not saying that there's one right way to do this, but I'll share with you how different communities do it, and that has a lot to do with the perspective of the communities as well as the perspective of the managers. So some communities, they will roll out a cost of living increase for everyone. That is not how I budget the budget. I do it all as a merit. And so if someone comes in and they do their job and they're effective at doing their job, they're going to get the equivalent of a cost of living increase, but it's going to be related to a performance evaluation. And if they do really well, they can get the amount above that. And so I always propose a merit, not a COLA. So last year, merit was, and my target is I want to at least try to be 1%, 2% above the cost of living. Last year, the cost of living was particularly low. It was around 1.5%. Right now, this morning when I checked with Bobby, it's around 8%. So if I were to recommend a merit increase, I would, if I followed that same formula again, I would be recommending a merit pool of 10%. I am, and I can be debated on this, but I'm not sure that is going to remain that high. And so what I am recommending, and part of this has to do with how competitive things are going to get around here, is I'm recommending doing things differently. So what I'm doing is I'm recommending with this budget a COLA adjustment of 2% to all employees come July 1st. And I do that in part because inflation is going crazy. I do that in part because things are going to get very competitive, particularly in the police and fire department. And also recognizing that the 3%, while technically that was within that 1 to 2% over the cost of living, that was marginalized because of just the tight revenue situation that we were in. So I'm looking for all reasons to deliver a 2% COLA to all employees come July 1st. And then they will have up to 5% merit at their performance evaluation. And then the last thing, this was alluded to when the Wake County Deputy County Manager came to visit you. They are looking, because they are concerned with retaining employees, they are offering retention bonuses to all their employees. They have offered the retention to any cost share fire department that they have a partnership with, Zebulon being one. And so the board has 3 options before them. One is to deny the retention. The other is to accept the retention, but just it would be for the fire department. Or the third option, which is the recommendation before you, is to offer the retention to all employees. And I don't know how this is going to be structured yet, but if you ask me, I would say something to the effect of, again, on July 1st, offer everyone maybe a quarter of what that retention is, and then come December, if they're still with us, provide 3/4 of retention. Just a way for them to do a couple things, to cool their jets, to realize that this is a good place of employment, but also we've got some other things that will help them, most notably the career ladder, and it's going to take some time for us to take what is funded in this budget, which is a career ladder for police as an example, to get that into the personnel policy. So we're looking to buy some time. I am positive you got some questions, so I will pause on this slide even though I'm not done with this section. There was a lot to ponder, and we'll have plenty of work sessions, yes.
Do we have access to other pay salary data from area towns or comparable towns?
Yes.
Because I would like to see that just for comparison.
Okay.
And I'd like to see what the merit breakdown was for FY '22. Who got 3%? What was the percentage of the percentage?
Other questions or comments?
Just one quick question for me. The engineer, would it be shared between planning and public works? Is that what I'm to understand?
I haven't figured that out. I haven't figured out where to house that, but they will have both planning and public works responsibilities.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments?
One quick question on the fund balance. Explain the importance of a good credit rating for us. I mean, I heard that quite a bit. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for me, please?
Yep. Okay. So credit agencies, they evaluate the credit rating of communities on a whole host of criteria. And fund balance is one portion of that. And the portion or the percentage that you can't go below without it affecting that component of the report card is you have to have at least 30% fund balance. Now, how does that make a difference? It makes a difference in the rates that you pay on the loans that you get. It makes a difference on the eligibility and grants that you get.
Thank you.
Yep. Other questions? Okay. So on the capital funding, while there was a lot of capital projects recommended and funded last year, we're going to roll those funds over if they have not already been spent. I wanted to give you a breakdown of the dedicated capital revenue that is available to you for disbursement. Generally, and this goes back to 2016, so the 2017 budget, we dedicated property taxes, 2 cents to go towards fleet, 2 cents to go to transportation, plus the tag fee, that leased vehicle license fee, and the POW bill. Facilities, half a cent. Parks and greenways, half a cent. And fire, 1.7 cents, plus any cost share from Wake County. Stormwater, we just implemented that last year, 0.7 cents. And again, we'll continue the rollovers to June. One thing I need to mention about Parks and Greenway, your Parks and Rec impact fee is doing very well. And we want to see what that looks like as far as revenue at the end of the fiscal year, so we can have some idea with you about how much money you've got available from the Parks and Rec impact fee. All right, as far as next steps, budget work session, again, is on May 10th. Okay, so let me explain a little bit about the binder that's in front of you. I heard more than once and publicly that this was a bear of a document, and so we're going to try to do things a little bit different and break down what is in here. And so what is in here is the budget message and the recommended budget. And that will give you...
Thanks, Bobby.
That will give you an overview of what's being recommended. And then we have given you the requested budgets from Parks and Rec, Fire Department, and Public Works Operation. Public Works has 2 divisions, so you'll see 2 divisions in their memo. Just focus on the operations. And then we have included in here information about the capital improvements to the storm drain, as well as service equipment. Service equipment are those capital items that, particularly with fire, to some extent police, very costly uniform or equipment-related expenses, and so we put them in the capital improvements. So the idea is we're going to give you inserts of this document so you can track along and take it in bite-sized chunks. So what we'll do is at the first work session, we'll answer any questions and we'll have presentations for you on Parks and Rec, Fire, Public Works, and those capital projects. As we do with all work sessions, we'll open it up and take any comments from the public, and then we will give you your next wave of handouts, which is going to be on police, planning, and then on the capital improvement side, facilities, community economic development, and parks. So that's what we'll try. If we need to adapt as we go through, but we want to, especially with 2 brand-new board members, we're just trying to give this to you in bite-sized chunks. If we need to accelerate it, then that's what we'll do. But that's why when you look at this binder, it's not going to be the big, massive document that you received in years past. And then, if you want to know more, we'll make this available on our webpage, as well as make hard copies to those locations that are mentioned there. So that concludes the budget message presentation. I'll take any final questions or comments.
So just to make sure I'm understanding, this is our complete informational packet that we're going to have for this
Yeah, for
budget
right
cycle.
now, for right now. And then because next week, you're going to get more inserts. You'll get, what you've got there is you've got the full budget message and you've got the full budget. But what you don't know, except for those 3 departments, is what they asked for. They will not match. Those departments have asked for a lot of things. I'm trying to illustrate so you know what is the difference between the budget before you and what they asked.
We have the recommended.
Yes.
Okay, all right, fantastic.
A budget-related growing town question. The impact fee increase we did for Park and Recs was excellent and probably long overdue. As far as other impact fees, how much freedom does a town have, for example, to charge impact fees on other services that are being strained?
Yep. So you'll have to do exactly what was done with the Parks and Rec impact fee. You have to adopt a master plan that serves as the rationale for what is the basis of the fee. So I would say your transportation impact fee needs to be revisited. You have a document that you can lean on. going beyond that, charging impact fees, you got to establish the rationale. A lot of times it's dependent upon a master plan, but depending upon what kind of impact fee you're talking about, the point is you got to have a rationale. You just can't come up with something.
In particular, I'm thinking emergency services, because as we grow land-wise and people-wise, that is putting a huge demand on both fire and police.
Okay. Other questions or comments? Okay, thank you for your time.
Okay. Do we have anything under E?
Yes, sir, we had ordinance 2022-38 would be your first item. That was pulled from the consent agenda, and then your memorandum of understanding with Wake County would be your second item.
I couldn't hear that last part. What was the last part? I couldn't hear what you said.
It would be the ordinance 2022-38 is the first one, and then the memorandum of understanding for the fire department with Wake County is your second item.
Mm-hmm. 2022-38, right?
Yes.
All right.
I'm assuming that the difference between what the damage is and what we were reimbursed from the insurance has to do with the deductible. Now, I believe that at least in one of those damaged vehicle incidences, the town was not directly at fault. Do we still pay, or do the insurance deductible, or do we ask whomever caused the accident to supply that deductible fee?
All right, what they do is our insurance goes after the at-fault person's insurance, and if and when they get it, then we get it. So when that if and when that happens, we'll receive that. We haven't yet, but then we would come back with a similar amendment to basically recognize the additional $1,000.
So for right now, it would be as if we were getting insurance proceeds from an uninsured or underinsured motorist?
Right.
Okay, all right. That was my big question. I'm not sure if anyone else had any questions.
Any questions, comments?
All right, then I will move to make a motion to approve ordinance 2022-38.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Second.
All in favor? Motion passes. The MOU on the fire department.
The attorney is the speaker on that.
Okay. There are a couple of items that I need to get clarification on. One, in section 5D, the reference to town council is made. To be consistent, should that actually read Board of Commissioners? Or are we to understand that town council is the same as Board of Commissioners and can be used interchangeably in this document?
Yes, it is interchangeable for this purpose.
Okay, all right. And then, on the actual memorandum itself, the first page, it refers to the entire 10.97 acre parcel to be used for the fire department, and I'm not sure that that's what our understanding of putting the fire department in that location would be, using that entire acreage.
Commissioner, the reference there is just to the property that was purchased. It isn't a designation of the entire 10.97 for the co-location.
It's just like describing the place.
That's right, it's just a factual statement that that's what was acquired by the town.
Okay, all right. As referenced by the PIN number further down. Under number 1.
That's right.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments concerning the?
Those were my questions. Did anyone else have any?
So we need a motion.
I make a motion we adopt the Fire EMS Station Memorandum of Understanding with Wake County.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor? All opposed?
You've already voted.
So what was it? Make sure I understand what I was doing. I'll make sure.
The memorandum of understanding with the fire department. The motion was, and second was to approve.
To approve it?
Yes.
Okay.
So all in favor?
All in favor? You've already voted.
You've already voted.
We already voted.
We had a vote of 3-2.
3-2.
3-2, okay. Motion passes. Manager's report. Board comments. Starting with Commissioner Laux.
Just 2 items, and I wish I could say this every meeting, but I want to thank the staff for all the work you guys do. Until you set up here and go through hundreds of pages of documents, ordinances, resolutions, iterations, you guys do a tremendous job. I don't think that the people in town really see all the work you do. I just want to thank you guys for that. And number 2, and not to sound like a broken record, but COVID is not gone. Really encourage people, vaccinate, booster, and mask. If you saw this evening's news, we do have a Wake County commissioner who's currently tested positive for COVID. And even though they were fully vaccinated and wear a mask, it's still happening. And predictions are we will have another wave this summer. So just a general friendly heads up, this is not over with. Jessica.
First, I want to say thank you to everyone, all of the citizens, business owners that took the time out to reach out to us and communicate regarding tonight's meeting. We do not take your thoughts, your opinions, your cares lightly, and we do hear you, so thank you for that. I would also like to recognize that this week is Nurses and Teacher Appreciation Week, and I would like to show my appreciation for every nurse and teacher that has stood the test of time during these trying years. We appreciate you. Thank you for your service and your dedication, especially to the ones who serve our community.
And I would just like to say that we had the North Carolina League of Municipalities City Vision last week in Wilmington, and we had the entire board there. And I think we all got a lot of information and things that we will be able to use in the future with Zebulon.
Just wanted to take a moment to join Wakefield Missionary Baptist Church in honoring Betty High. Ms. High was both a teacher and a librarian at the James E. Shepherd, and then was full-time librarian at Zebulon Elementary. Her selfless service to the development of Zebulon children for over 30 years is both miraculous and inspiring. She is a living icon, and Zebulon has been lucky to have her. Thank you, Ms. High, for all you've done. I also want to give a quick shout out to GSK, the Chamber of Commerce, and Old Distillery for hosting an extraordinary GSK hiring event this past Saturday. It's exciting to see the unity between local events. And I would like to congratulate the owners of the George and Neville Barbie House right here in Zebulon. Mayor York and I had the honor of accepting on their behalf the historic landmark last night in Wake County Historic Preservation Commission. Lastly, I just want to invite everyone to next Saturday's Spring Fest, Unity Through Community.
Thank you.
I'm going to piggyback on Commissioner Clark's statement about the North Carolina League of Municipalities Conference in Wilmington. It really was transformative. There were a lot of opportunities to talk with legislators from across North Carolina, as well as city and town managers. In particularly, one of the things that I found very useful was a breakout session that talked about the top 10 considerations that we're going to have to make to plan for our cities and towns in the future. I thought that the information was incredible. I'd like to send a thank you out to Mr. Clayton Hmersky, who actually gave me a walking tour of the waterfront and all along the major projects that the town of, or the city of Wilmington has undergoing right now. I walked over 7 miles and have the blisters to prove it. But it was really quite wonderful to be able to have that kind of engagement, and I brought a lot of useful information back from that conference that I feel is going to be directed wisely in the decision-making process going forward. Meals on Wheels is looking for 2 to 3 additional drivers to help deliver meals. It's a commitment of 1 hour a month. And so if anyone is interested, please reach out to me and I can get you in contact with the person that does the scheduling. Again, Springfest, May 14th. It looks like it's going to shape up to be an absolutely wonderful day. We're going to have the Zebulon Artisan Market in the morning and then Springfest in the evening. So this is going to be a wonderful event, a couple of events to bring the community together. I don't know who else has signed up, but I am going to be throwing some axes next week because Parks and Rec has provided an axe throwing event. I'm not sure if there are any additional spots left open, but any resident children, what ages? 13? 13 to 17 can actually participate in that event for free. I raced home from Wilmington, dropped off backpack buddies, and eventually headed over to the 21st annual charity golf event for the Boys and Girls Club on Friday. And that had wonderful participation, and I would like to send out my sincerest of thank yous to everyone that worked so hard to make that event a success. And then I think finally, I've got a food security luncheon with partners from across Wake County coming up this week. And it's kind of wonderful that our town is hosting it. So I look forward to engaging in some really excellent discussions. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just have one comment. This is, the month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month. It is a vital thing in our community, and the resources, hope folks take advantage of those through our Eastern Regional Center, where the county contracts out their mental health services. I think Monarch is their behavioral health professionals. So just be aware that those resources are available to the community. And thank the board for, I think that's the first time we ever had 100% participation in the City Vision League of Municipalities Conference. And it was a lot of information, a lot of good information. Hadn't seen folks in a while because of COVID, and it was very well received. And I hope everyone got something out of it and got information that we could bring back and utilize for our benefit of our community. And with that, manager's report.
Nothing more to add.
Okay. Next is closed session. Per General Statute 143-318-11, parentheses A, parentheses 5, to instruct the town staff and negotiating agent concerning the position to be taken on behalf of the town in negotiating the price and other materials, terms of a contract or proposed contract for the acquisition of real property by purchase, option, or exchange or lease. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
I have a motion, and we have a second?
Second.
So moved.
You have to
10
vote
minute
on
break?
that.
All right.
Can
10
you
minutes.
vote on that, please, to go into closed session?
Favor.
Oh, all in favor? All opposed? Motion passed. 10 minute break.